Coming up next. Howdy, folks, and welcome back into Smite Summer Masters here on Smite Sunday. You got Dimes on the desk. Joining me is Frog. My head's full of concrete. His head is full of sunshine and rainbows and magic, to be quite frank. Frog, halfway through the day here, final day of this first little portion of Smite Masters. We just witnessed a 2-1 win. The Wargs going down to the SPL squad. And finally, the SEC has taken a bit of a bump here on Sunday.
Yeah, the EU SEC is now defeated. Of course, the Wargs have been defeated before, but it's only the Hex Mambo now remaining in the bracket from the SEC.
And let's check out that bracket, Frog. Take a look here and see what we've got left on this Smite Sunday and what we've got left in Smite Masters overall. Just like we said, Eldritch Hounds bumping off the Niflheim Wargs, sending them back to Europe. And at the top there, Oni Warriors, Hex Mambo. That's what we got coming up next, and this storyline pretty much just writes itself, Frog.
Yeah, it is. I've been seeing a lot of hype around the potential matchup, Johnny going up against Panatom. But I got to tell you, I'm not sure if they're really ready for the Oni Warriors. Undefeated in the main season of the SPL, this team sort of came together out of nowhere and has been, I don't want to say the Cinderella story, because after about the 4th or 5th win, you were kind of expecting them to keep going on winning. I think, especially stars for this team, their solo jungle dive. Panatom going to be going up against Johnny, and Solo Retrol has been bringing out some of the more spicier picks and making his own new meta, bringing a ton of effectiveness into just that solo and really almost writing the story for how the SPL should be playing.
Well, Frog, speaking of Solo Retrol, we have him standing by, ready for an interview to talk a little bit about this upcoming match.
SOT, let's pick up right where the desk left off there. It's been all about Hex Mambo over the last few days. Been hearing a lot about this squad. They haven't dropped a game yet at this event. Does that stop here?
I think it absolutely does stop here. I think we'll be 16-0 after next week. So
that's a good look for you guys. It's been a great phase so far. I want to tap into me, if you will. SEC meta versus SPL meta. What have you guys gathered from how the teams have been playing this current update, this current iteration of Smite so far?
Honestly, I'm not too sure. Most of the games I've seen, I haven't seen too many, but the few of the games I've seen, they kind of just it's pretty slow pace for the most part, and things sort of pick up around the 20-minute mark. A lot of beacon fights I've noticed. A lot of fights around objectives, and I think overall the meta seems in a pretty good spot, pretty balanced. It's kind of which team has the best map play, the best team play. Kind of I see come out on top because they control objectives better and team fight better.
Well, we're able to get you guys back in action finally. Do you get the feeling that the Oni Warriors have had to change their play style dramatically from what we've seen? Man, I guess that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. At this point, it's been a while. Yeah. Do you get drastic differences in how the game is feeling for you guys right now, or more the same?
I think it's a little bit different, but I think it's not too drastic. I think it's similar, but I think we're still going to be focusing on just playing well as a team, 5v5 team fights. When to secure, when to burst, when to fight. Doing map splits. So if we were losing on one side, we can just all go to let's say dual lane or go to fire. If we're losing gold, we just rush fire or something. Stuff like that. We're just focused on playing well as a team.
Johnny's been the headliner for the Hex Mambo team, but you guys got Panatom. Are you favoring yourself in that matchup?
Personally, absolutely. I'm biased. I'm a big Panatom fan. I think Panatom is just pretty much the best player in the entire game. I think he's been one of the best players for a very long time, and I think he's just kind of he's going nuclear. Honestly, the things he does is every time you can always count on him. Every team fight, he always is going to perform, and he always does his job perfectly and better, honestly, than he's supposed to do. So
excited to see the Oni Warriors back in action. Thanks for your time.
Thank
you.
The
desk will start us off.
Solo a troll. Not a lot of bravado, just a calm assurance coming out from Sot and the rest of the Oni Warrior squad. But this could be the matchup that really puts them through their paces. I mean, Frog, what more can we say about the Hex Mambo that we have not already said over the past 3 days?
Yeah, it is hard to... We've been talking about them a lot, and for good reason. 10-0 so far, completely undefeated. And initially, that was just against those SCC teams. But now they've taken games and taken the set off of this first game of the day, that SPL team. Johnny landing a penta during that game.
Did he do that?
He did indeed.
Oh,
he
yeah.
did indeed do
oh,
that.
Were we?
We were actually.
Oh, we casted
We
it.
did cast that.
That's
Do you
right.
remember? Yes, it is. Go check out the Smite Pro Twitter, and you can see Johnny's Penta. But it is. It's got to have them feeling pretty good. And I think for as dominant as the Oni Warriors have been, you're right to question, like, this may be a little bit different of a test. You're bringing in new ideas from this SCC team. This is not the equivalent. I remember an interview that Davey gave a little bit earlier where he said the Wargs have been scrimming for the past 3 weeks. I talked to Hawk, and Hawk was like, yeah, we just hopped on the meta, and we were surprised we lost the end of this SCC set, so we got a couple scrims in where we could, but we're just relying, like, they are going back to what they feel confident in and bringing their own meta to the table. Yesterday, it was Hawk that said they feel more confident in their meta than the SPL meta, right? They're not going to change their stuff because of what the SPL is bringing to the table. It was a dominant 2-0 versus the SPL team earlier today, and I definitely expect them to put up a fight against the Oni Warriors.
I mean, Frog, there's something to be said for playing your own game that you're comfortable with. That's why players have gone to comfort picks in Smite for years. I mean, at some point when your back's against the wall, obviously Hex Mambo's not even close to getting their backs against the ball. But when chips are down, you got to go back to what you feel comfortable with and what you know. And speaking of picks and what you know, talking about Johnny, almost impossible to ban out. Are you looking at another player on this Hex Mambo squad to really target out and focus?
No. No, I don't think so.
What are you gonna do?
Kha'Zix gave an interview earlier this week that was, Johnny's great.
Yep.
He is what we sort of draft around and what we can play around, but it would not work if we didn't have the powerhouses of players that we do have behind Johnny.
Sure.
And that's absolutely remained true. In fact, I've seen a lot of talk, and I completely agree with it. Kha'Zix has been a little bit underappreciated this tournament. He is doing a ton of the setup and positioning and engage tools just to give Hex Mambo and give Johnny the space so that he can walk through and look, make that pentakill look as easy as it does. And this is going to be the key matchup, what you see on the screen right here. Johnny going up against Panatom. Panatom feels like he has not been tested all season long for this first phase of the SPL. He has been making the other junglers look like they just picked up the game yesterday. Johnny has a little bit of a different play style. He brings his own god pool to the table. He's been playing Ao Kuang for like 7 seasons in a row, right? Like he doesn't care about what the current meta is. He will bring his own god pool to the table. And even this weekend, we've seen him widen that god pool, even when he's not forced out being banned. We've seen people try to ban him out, but even like earlier in the set, they didn't even ban him out. He just went to Thor. He was just like, I'm going to beat you in 18 minutes. I'm going to pick the Thor. And so it is definitely going to be a matchup of the junglers who can run the map better.
And we're going to head into picks and bans here, Frog, for game number 1. But I got one more question for you while we get bans underway here. You mentioned it in the interview. It's been about a month since the Oni Warriors have played in a competitive environment. Obviously, you've been scrimming, but nothing like Smite Masters.
Right.
Hex Mambo, 10 games in a row of the best competition in the world. Do you think that's going to play a factor here as your Mojo's taken off the board?
Absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said for the hot hand, and Hex Mambo have been hot all weekend long. You've heard Hawk in these interviews. You've heard all the players of Hex Mambo at one point or another exhibit that same calm confidence that we just saw from Solar Troll walking out on stage. And so they are not feeling questionable going into this matchup. They have to hold on to the confidence. If not, they might have already lost. But I feel confident. They're bringing their best competitive foot forward to the table, and I think that start to come through already in these picks and bans where, lo and behold, we're starting to see yet again someone else trying to ban out Johnny. We'll have to see how that goes.
Bans rolling through quickly here. Clearly the Warriors and the Mambo have their game plans locked down. Oni Warriors saying, we're not giving you Kali. You're not going to pentakill us. Not here in game number 1 of this set. Baba Yaga Ao Kuang also killed by the Oni Warriors. On the reverse side, you got a support Yamoja, Robin and Thor. Nixed as well. The ever-popular Hachi Man picked up here.
Spudio looked fantastic on this pick a little bit earlier on. This was their, 20-minute win against the Gilded Gladiators, where you had a Hachi Man and you paired it with an aggressive support. In that game, Kha'Zix was on Maui, but it could be a Kabrakan, it could be an Atlas, and they ended up just forcing themselves into the duel lane and pressuring those waves. And I think it was 12 minutes where Spudio had a 5-level lead against the another hugely popular hunter, Rama, on the other side. And Gilded Gladiators just weren't able to play into it. So I can definitely see why Hex Mambo continue to value this hunter pick early on in their draft. Hachiman just has been on top all weekend long. Banned and picked. Great safety, great damage coming out of this pick as well. Versatility in the form of both that dash as a movement ability and the ultimate as a movement ability. So a little bit of extra safety compared to the average god in that hunter tab. But a little bit surprisingly, the Warriors grabbed that hunter matchup right back.
Oni Warriors taking their sweet time with these first two picks. It's going to be the Krononos and the Aphrodite. Kind of curious. Got the Terra online, got the Maui online, the ever-popular Tyr still on the board as well. That's seen a lot of success here at Smite Masters. Instead, the Warriors opt to go that Krononos Aphrodite route. And now the Hex Mambo. You could pick for Johnny here, you could pick for Hawk here, the Discordia's online. Like I mentioned, any of those solo laners, the KA, the Tyr. I mean, pretty much wide open board here for the Hex Mambo.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think this series of picks shows us that we're already seeing a rift in the meta between the SPL and the SEC. Both teams feel confident in their own meta. Both teams bring what they feel is valuable to the table. I don't expect to see the Hex Mambo drift away from what's been finding them success. Terra and Discordia still on the board. They're going to go ahead and pick up the Terra and Discordia, whereas Oni Warriors, Krononos hasn't been banned all weekend, I think, and they picked it first, right? And Aphrodite hasn't been banned or picked all weekend, and they picked it second. It's not to say they haven't had success in this pick. In fact, Awesome Jake is pretty much the only support in the league that has been having routine success on this Aphrodite pick. But to value it this highly, to pick it second pick when the Hex Mambo have shown, I mean, you could have held on to this for last pick if you really wanted to, and you could have tried to get more out of the draft, more see what Hex Mambo was going to pick a little bit later on. But at this point, you've had 10 games to watch Hex Mambo. If you don't know the game plan they're coming in with, I'm not sure you've done your homework.
Oni Warriors headed the way of Achilles here. I like that pickup. Most likely headed into the solo lane. We've seen it flexed into the jungle as well. So a bit of back and forth, but typically Panatom, you like to put him on one of those hyper carry, aggressive, a god that you can really put the team on your back, transition into the mid-late game, and kind of just make things happen. Next round of bans rolling through here. We're going to need, assuming that Achilles is headed to solo, we're going to need junglers on both these squads. Hex Mambo also looking for a solo laner. Tyr still on the board, looking for Johnny's pick as well. King Arthur, we saw Cullen played. Solo Beck. I mean, the solo lane has pretty much been untargeted by both these squads.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised we're not seeing as many Guardians, to be honest. I thought that Cthulhu would make more of an appearance, maybe Ardio, maybe Jing Chen. Instead, it's only been that solo Beck over there, and the Sobek has not proved to be effective whatsoever. Everybody that has pulled that god out has sort of been on the back foot for the entirety of the game. But this Achilles pick from the Oni Warriors, I love the pickup. This is a great link for the Aphrodite to just be in the front line, dishing out that damage, and when it comes through, you can use that Undying Love and make the Achilles feel even more unkillable than he already does. But as these bans come out, Oni Warriors looking to round out the draft.
Cirquet, a 20% win rate, 5 times played. That is not a fantastic number.
Nope.
With a god that we've seen picked up over and over. I mean, 5 times played. It's a good chunk of games. The data is there. Hasn't worked out so far. Put it in the hands of Panatom. See if you can flip that number on its head. And there's the King Arthur to pair with the Discordia.
King Arthur coming through, no surprise there. I think Julio has looked really solid on this pick. And so with the tier banned away, you're not really going to want to force Julio onto something that, if you don't have to force him onto something, he has been one of the least dying players all weekend. And so definitely want to keep him on his comfort picks if you can. I'm interested to see where they go for Johnny here. Thor, Kali, Bakasura, Aokwang, all taken off the board. Loki, notably, still available for one of those Johnny picks. And he also played Camazotz a little bit earlier on this weekend. So he could go back to either of those 2 picks, or he could go for something like the Hebo pick that he's gone to in the past. And, you know, for all we know, he could pull out in a totally different pick. We have no idea how deep his God pool is because for the longest time, he hasn't had to go that deep in order to have hugely impactful games. But they're spending a lot of time on this pick.
Well, you mentioned that Loki still on the board. Johnny pretty much the only jungler to really have success on that pick. In fact, winning on it earlier this week. How would that pick in particular fare against this current Oni Warriors draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit too single target to go up against the draft with an Aphrodite, in my opinion, right? If you're Awesome Jake, you get the chance to link to your Kronos, link to whichever mid laner you end up going, and you get to compare Undying Love versus Assassinate in a direct trade. Undying Love is always going to come out on top. But Johnny routinely has found ways to make that ultimate work. It was just, I mean, I still remember a highlight play from him just the other day where it felt like there was no action on the map. Everybody was just resetting for Fire Giant, and Johnny just makes 3 kills happen against the enemy team, right? He just pulls plays out of nowhere and has some of the best patience from this jungle role. So especially if the Oni Warriors find themselves in the front foot and they want to link to this Achilles and maybe use that Aphrodite ult, those safety tools aggressively, that may put them in a bad spot versus this Loki.
Habois is going to be the final pickup here for the Oni Warriors. That'll be slotted into the middle lane here. And, I mean, for Pagon, who's played this Habal before, seen tons of success on it, and an incredible mechanical player, do you like this pickup, or do you feel like it's just too much of a liability into a Loki, King Arthur, dive the backline type comp?
I think it's good from ahead, good from a position where the Oni Warriors are finding themselves on the front foot. Because in the scenario where Serket is a facilitator, Achilles is a facilitator, they get to build a little bit tanky, walk forward, get a bunch of cooldowns dumped into them, then Kronos and Habois are both picks that can join them in that sort of W key full dive comp style of play. You're not waiting for the King Arthur or for the Loki to dive you. You are going on the front foot and diving them, starting out the fight on your own accord. And when that happens, you get those multi-man crushing waves. You get to use the passive on Kronos and get those cleave autos when you're right up next to each other. And both characters have some of those self-peel tools as well, that knock up, that polymorph as well, that can just make a team fight chaos. So I think it can fit into their composition, absolutely, but from behind, these picks can struggle. When Kronos falls a little bit behind and can't find those 1v1s, when Habois falls a couple levels behind and has trouble stepping up, if the Mambo get off to a good start here, this could be dangerous for the Oni Warriors.
Looking at the Oni Warriors, a lot of damage on the table, a lot of CC on the table as well. Are you thinking this may be an early game pick style comp? Obviously, Serket taking a little bit to get online here. But, I mean, is it fair to say Oni Warriors looking for more of a split-up team fight, whereas the Hex Mambo may be going towards more of that cohesive unit?
Yeah, I think it depends on how this Serket gets built, right? We've known Panatom to be that carry-style jungler, picking up the Susano in the past and really just going all in, dealing his entire kit, taking a kill, and just getting out of the fight safely. But a lot of what we've seen more recently on the Serket is sort of that hybrid build where you don't get as much damage, but you make a lot of space for your team to do the damage behind you. So it kind of depends on how Panatom chooses to play into this team fight style. On the other side, though, you know what Hex Mambo is going for. Hex Mambo wants the 30-minute team fight, and they've got the comp to do it.
Both of these squads undefeated. One team will fall here. It's the Warriors, it's the Mambo, and it's with David Myth.
That's right, but the Oni Warriors have been undefeated for a little bit longer. They made their way through all of Phase 1 of the Smite Pro League and the kickoff tournament. Hex Mambo, they're on quite a run here at Smite Masters. And this is a brawl that a lot of fans at home are looking forward to. And Myth, I am curious what our percentages are going to look like.
It's got to be heavy Warriors, right? I was expecting way more Warrior.
I'm nervous that this Hex Mambo train could come crashing back down to earth after a set like this. This Oni Warriors team, I think they haven't played in like a month, and people might be forgetting just how good this squad is.
The Oni Warriors have a lot of expectations riding on them. Not only are they undefeated throughout the regular phase, but they're also representing the SPL as a whole. They're the best that the SPL has to offer right now. And if Hex Mambo could put a stopper to them, all of a sudden the conversation of, SEC versus SPL starts to look a little bit more.
The SPL as a whole needs this.
Yeah, every team in the league right now is an Oni Warriors fan. But I like an upset, Dave. I don't know.
No, I agree. If Hex Mambo are able to find a way to get this done, one of the more miraculous upsets we've maybe ever seen, given the context of the run that the Oni Warriors went on and are still on throughout the entirety of Phase 1. And if they have anything to say about it throughout Smite Masters as well. Let's talk compositions. Hex Mambo, they brought aggression to the forefront here. Love Julio on the King Arthur. And Johnny, one of the most banned out players here this weekend, Miff. Eats a few more bans, still ends up with his Loki, and I think that's where you got to start talking about this Hex Mambo team. Had a Penta earlier today. You'll have an opportunity to make an impact on this Loki pick.
Yeah, Loki's been interesting for me. It's been working out for Johnny, but it hasn't been Johnny getting hyper-aggressive. It's not Johnny making things happen on the map like it is when he's on Ao Kwong or maybe some of his other more aggressive picks. More so on the Loki, it's about hanging back.
Netrioid uses the beads and actually dashes back in as Spudio used all of his damage. The supports brawling out with the ADCs. Everyone stays alive in duo. Enough sustain on either side of that lane to keep everyone near full in the HP department. Kha'Zix's just a bit low. Agreed, though, on the Johnny point. Panatom, though, on the flip side. Talking about one of the best junglers, if not players, in the world at the moment. And he gets his Circuit. Playmaking style, good damage, good utility opportunity in a pick like that. Careful, Netrioid dashes away. That root from Kha'Zix might have been difficult. Johnny rotating to left, considering a gank, but won't find that opening.
Yeah, should just be the farm for Johnny, and that's going to be the case for the next 12 or so levels. Seems like he really does like getting that second relic online before he gets active on map in the PvP. So, expect to see him trying to rotate through the side lanes, mainly just for the neutral farm, control those neutral camps, and put himself ever so slightly ahead. If anyone needs to get active, it would be Panatom. Circuit is a pace-setting style of pick, one that can find picks very easily. Even up against Julio here, King Arthur, pretty safe in lane, but only level 3, doesn't have that defensive item finished up just yet. Would be an opportunity for Panatom, especially if he can take over to level 5 before Julio is able to make his way back to base. Speaking of back to base, Johnny has already made his way back just the once. So a little bit additional time on field for Panatom here. Less power in pocket, but maybe more farm in pocket for him.
Looking towards mid. He'll run face first. Panatom will into Johnny here on the mid camps. Glad we got to hover over in solo lane for just a moment. SOT on the Achilles, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. What would you say in the last 2 weeks a lot of Smite is? How many hours of Smite in the last 2 weeks would you consider a lot?
Ooh.
For a player to have played?
For a player to have played?
In the last couple weeks.
I would say, oh man, on average, if we're doing doubleheader weeks, you can expect them to go 3, right? So anywhere upwards of like 7 hours of in-game time?
A day.
A day, yeah. Oh, a day, anything over 3.5 hours is crazy.
I want for 2 weeks, 14 days of human life. How many hours is a lot of hours of Smite to have played in your mind?
20? Let's call it 20. Yeah, let's call it 20.
SOT told me he played 250 hours of Smite in the last 2 weeks.
Man. SOT has not seen the sun. That is insane.
I was talking to him before the interview, and I said, "Oh, Sod, it's been about like a month. You guys qualified in, like halfway through Phase 1. You've been chilling. You've been practicing a lot. You've been playing a lot of Smite." And he goes, "Yeah, I don't know, 250 or so hours on Steam in the last,
who's counting, though?
In the last few weeks, Steam is, apparently." It's clarified just how much Smite this guy has played. Pagon, he's got Johnny chasing him down in mid. Johnny's got an ult, but Pagon's got beads. A knock-up in water hands. All of that had to be moment perfect from both players. Johnny was out for blood. Pagon will live for the time being. But with some of that 250 hours of playtime myth, SOT settled on the Achilles as his selection here for Game 1.
Yeah, Achilles has been a pick on the rise recently. We've seen it out of the jungle a few times. It's been a little while since we've seen him in the solo lane, but incredibly good boxing potential, combat dodge, just a really annoying ability to deal with in the laning phase. He's got relatively good sustain, better than what King Arthur should be bringing. And then it's that execute come late game that becomes so important. Are you landing your shots? Are you not? And it's binary, right? If yes, Achilles looks pretty good. If no, all of a sudden that pick starts to lose some of its luster. I'll be keeping my eyes on SOT because it feels like SOT and the Oni Warriors might have a composition here that could just deal with the front line of Hex Mambo. If Julio and Kha'Zix are going to be forced to initiate all these fights, that execute from SOT might just be the linchpin for the Oni Warriors in the team fight.
I'm doing this math now. There's no way it was 250 hours. That's like 17 hours of Smite a day for the last 2 weeks.
That guy's a streamer, though.
I'm thinking he maybe meant in the last month since we've seen them play. He's added another 200 or so hours of Smite. That's how I'm gonna
24 hours in a day. 2 weeks is 14 days.
You wake up, you go to bed, you stream for 17 hours.
That's 10 of the 14 days spent in game.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a longer term answer that he gave me.
I'm thinking he's a liar.
I'll find out. We'll find out from Sot one way or another. Phalanx to start off his build. Be just fine over there in lane. Johnny's going to stack up a bit on this Transcendence, whereas Panatom has gone Jotuns with his first item. And we've seen Johnny a bit hovering around the map. Made a gank attempt over in mid. Pagon was right on time with Crushing Wave with his beads. This is now the time, though, Myth. Level 8, 1 item in, a tier 1 item in for Panatom. Is now the time for the Circuit to get active.
Yeah, especially considering he has elected to go for the faster build. With Jotun's Wrath as opposed to Transcendence, which we have seen a fair deal of in the past, you want him getting active while he's got this advantage over Johnny. Johnny, of course, not exactly keen to take too many fights. Maybe would be if he can find Pagon the next 20 seconds before those beads are back up. Where would I send Panatom? Rotations towards Hawk, always pretty appetizing. Catch him out before he finishes up his stacking item, if he elects to go the stacking item, that is. We've seen this new age, just tier 2 item build tend to stick for a little while. Could be that he just holds on to tier 2 book and then turns it into a Soul Reaver.
Pagon stacking.
A little bit later on. Yeah, that is interesting as well. I think that does indicate to me something the desk had brought up, which is the Oni Warriors look to W key with this type of composition.
Yep.
You want a little bit of HP, a little bit of damage. Can't go wrong with Warlock Staff.
One thing that I can confirm the math of, that Sot told me, is that he sensed that there's just a lot more scrapping going on, a lot more things to fight over. The Stygian Beacon in mid has brought up fights. Titans have brought up fights. And we were wondering, the big question around this Oni Warriors team was, will the new meta lean into what the Oni Warriors want to do? Are they going to have to pivot and play a different style? Do they not care? They're going to play their game either way. A meta that enhances fighting. Seems like it could be a good avenue for the Oni Warriors to follow, given where they found a lot of their success in Phase 1. Panatom winning a bit of a health trade against Johnny, but Johnny will send a little bit of damage right on back. The Loki with the Assassinate back online. Got the beads off of Pagon a little bit ago, but hasn't been able to strike pay dirt from that point on. In the dual lane, Myth, it started off with some fireworks in the beginning, but plenty of sustain with both of these supports. And a Sunder from Cozy finds Jake, but Jake, one of the players on this Aphrodite Myth that keeps us maybe believing in the viability of the pick. Julio stunned by SOTs on the wrong side of the lane, and execute needed. Still an execute threshold, but I'm not sure Sot can close that gap. Up and over he goes, and just needed some lockdown from Panatom. Gank number 1 and kill number 1. 8 minutes in to game number 1.
Man, that is a well-coordinated fight right there. Just SOT starts channeling the ultimate as soon as the dash forward from Panatom is channeled, knowing that the taunt will be there immediately afterward, and he was right to trust in his jungler. Clean play to the Oni Warrior. Surprised to see Julio playing as far up in the lane as he was. Similarly, Pagon caught out. Assassinates there. Does he have the HP? He does.
Didn't have much more mana, though. Needed to dodge out that apple, I will add. Hawk, how that apple of Discord landed on a Pagon. Might have been talking about a slightly different moment, but just part of that solo lane fight that we saw that gave Oni Warriors first blood. I was talking a bit about Awesome Jake on the Aphrodite. And Myth, we've seen this pick for a little while. We'll call it 50-50 success.
Well, with Jake, we'll call it 100%.
Right, 100% success with Jake. 50-50 maybe across the rest of the league.
That's a generous 50-50.
Boosted by Jake.
Yeah.
Potentially. But this is a pick and a style of pick that really just facilitates the rest of the Oni Warriors and how they want to play.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the selection of target for Kiss on Jake. Is it going to be Panatom so that he's allowed to jump into the back line? Or is it going to be Pagon so that your Hebo, who is a late-game Quadra Ultimate style pick, now has additional protections and another Beads Aegis hard-baked into his kit as well, thanks to that Undying Love. I would imagine we see him connected up with Pagon pretty consistently, have Panatom act more so as a solo agent, just hovering on the edge of the team fight. But we'll see. The Oni Warriors have always had their own style of play. They've always had their own methods, and even though they stray from the standard sometimes, be hard-pressed to find anything to question about them, considering the win streak that they've found themselves in as of now. Hex Mambo, though, a pace that I've become accustomed to seeing from them. Hold that thought, Julio.
Look out for Execute Threshold. Sat's got ultimate, and Julio will be taunted in once more. This one, simple now. Who gets it? Panatom or SOT?
Whoa! Okay.
Okay, Sat gets it. Sat gets it, don't worry. But now there's reinforcements from Hex Mambo. Hawk has just been off the mark with these ultimates so far this game. Panatom
the beads.
Blinks forward once more, looks for the taunt, doesn't get it, but gets beads away from Hawk. That's a value trade for the Oni Warriors. Only the time spent of 2 players over in solo, and you get a kill. And a set of beads off the middle
Hold on.
laner. Sot.
He might have them.
Remember, Sot never used Execute.
Ooh.
Or maybe it's still on cooldown. Either way, Johnny's able to get out. His diamond is full, but did not want to take the dive underneath the tower.
Yeah, here's the thing about Sot. He's 2-0, and if he trades out his life for Johnny, that's a value trade for Johnny with the shutdown mechanics in Smite. And so, a good decision to hold off on diving into that tower. Fatal Strike, when you land it as well, does reduce your defenses every time you find those executes. So, would have been a guaranteed death there for the Achilles if he had decided to go into that tower. The point I was trying to make before the Oni Warriors do what they always do when we cast their games, which is force action on the map.
When you're trying to make a point.
That's right. Is that Hex Mambo, this is a pace that we've become accustomed to seeing from them. The slower early game, maybe not overly proactive, have Johnny farm up, just hover in your lanes and keep your head above water style of play. And it served them well, undefeated up until this point. But looking at the compositions, I would almost argue that the Oni Warriors just scale much better into the late game, the 5-on-5 engagement. So if that is the portion of the match that Hex Mambo are aiming for, might find themselves in store for a rude awakening. The Oni Warriors, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, they could just rest on their laurels for the next few minutes, and I would not be concerned about it.
I'm not sure. The only reason I'd be concerned is because that's not what the Oni Warriors do. I'd be wondering what's going on, but a fight may break out now. Stygian Beacon spawns in mid. Kha'Zix, for now, will contest it, but you can see this rallying of the Oni Warriors over towards the mid lane. Stygian Beacon is captured. Wondered if we would see a scrap over it. Hex Mambo not liking the opportunity that was presented to them there, so it's an easy first, I guess we'll call it a neutral objective over to the Oni Warriors, and that buff, that tower shred, really a structure shred, can really start to add up if the Hex Mambo aren't able to find their opening. Jake has finally started to rotate out of this duo lane here, Myth.
He's in trouble.
We're going to be fighting a bit further. Kha'Zix caught out maybe once more. An Undying Love early from Awesome Jake. Jake will eat the ultimate from Hawk over in mid. Johnny has Assassinate and Blink. Does not want either gap close opportunity. Oni Warriors poking and prodding once more. Maybe more just make Hex Mambo think about what's going on.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm pretty sure Crushing Wave would have secured the kill there, but considering the positioning of Hawk, had Pagon decided to use it aggressively, had he made contact, likely would have found himself in no man's land immediately afterward. And so, some discipline from the Oni Warriors. And discipline's not something the Oni Warriors have ever been lacking for. I know the conversation around this team is that they just press their buttons better and they play faster than everybody else, but there's a method to their madness. You can see it in their rotations around these neutral objectives, how quickly they are able to get active around Pyromancer, around Gold Fury. And so, a good deal of respect towards Hex Mambo from the Warriors.
Yep.
I imagine we're going to hit an inflection point very shortly, and it's got to do with this third item. Just about across the board, pretty massive power spikes here for the Oni Warriors. Panatom starting to stack up a little bit of that defensive utility. Pagon getting a little bit more HP stacked up as well. These are the Warriors who become very tanky very quickly, and that's not even taking into account the defense share from Awesome Jake.
Right.
Hex Mambo, if they want to leverage this pick-based composition, if they want Johnny getting active in that back line, no easy targets for him, except for Netroid, but CERN is one of the more self-sufficient, self-peeling ADCs in the game.
Yep.
Okay, use Assassinate on me, I'll drop Wild Hunt on my feet, and then from there, hopefully the team can get back and help me out in time. And for the most part, I'd expect them to be there.
Yep, Oni Warriors usually in sync with one another. And that's been what a lot of the players themselves have attributed their success to.
Yeah, what do they say? There's just, yeah, we don't even talk that much. We just kind of play, and what I would do is what my teammates are doing.
Would do, right.
What I wouldn't have given to have any sort of connection like that with teammates in the past. That's just got to be a great feeling.
Right, and do you think that's your fault because of your play style? Right.
I'm a stinker, bud.
Right, the other 4 players were on the same page, and then there's Myth running down RDO jungle.
Whoa. Did you say that? Why do you know about my RDO jungle game, man?
God, there's just something about that game. RDO jungle.
Yeah, I was 0-14.
Maybe.
Okay, it was on LAN. All right, we get it. I get it. Let's talk about this one, you know?
You're right, that's my fault. Got to get in my shots while I can, Myth. SOT working on things over here in solo. He's got a couple kills given over to him by Panatom, and his rotation's over. But really the 1-level lead there. Julio's been able to stack up a couple items just fine. Haven't seen the solo laners make their waves across the map just yet. Poor Pagon, speaking of waves, he's had his crushing wave on cooldown pretty frequently here. Ganks over towards mid have gotten beads and ultimate off the Hebo, maybe more often than Pagon would have liked. So we haven't really been able to see him get super aggressive around the rest of his team. You're right, though, talking about respect. Oni Warriors paying it to Hex Mambo, but Hex Mambo, they're maybe now sensing some space that's been given. Sot, can he make magic happen?
Oh,
no.
close.
Pyromancer nearly stolen by the Achilles, but that means a Gold Fury is pulled on the other side of the map by the Oni Warriors. Spuddio is going to sniff this out. Panatom is here. The squishy Hachiman, got to be careful. Beads taken away, but Johnny, Kha'Zix, they're rotating behind. Oni Warriors get the Gold Fury, but do you get out alive? Awesome Jake doesn't have ultimate. Undying Love has already been used, but he's scurrying away to the rest of his team. Oni Warriors, they're going back in. Panatom, eyes for Spuddio, who's been abandoned by the rest of his team. Sot on a teleport at a solo lane. Grabs his 3rd kill and a Gold Fury for the Oni Warriors. Just a faster rally. Hex Mambo, kind of a piecemeal steal attempt, ends up dropping a kill and the Fury itself.
Yeah, Hex Mambo really wanted to chase after the objective. They see that Awesome Jake has isolated himself, and it looked at me like Jake had essentially accepted his fate. Okay, well, I might die, but at least we got the Fury, and the rest of my carry is going to make it out alive. But the rotation from Pagon through the back line, SOT's teleport, and Jake just being a little bit tankier than I think anybody expected leads to an Oni Warriors massive swing. So it's Pyromancer for Gold Fury and a kill, favoring the Warriors.
I love this from Sot. Sot was trading out with Johnny. Julio stepped up, and Sot simply walked by Julio and kept chasing down Johnny. Gives you a good bit of confidence in a Tier 1 tower. Crumbles on the left side. That'll be your first tower of the game for Awesome Jake and Netrioid. Jake has really played his rotations well here. Seems like he's been in the right spot at the right time. Helped out Netrioid and shoving down the tower. Helped out the rest of the team around that Fury fight. Silver lining for Hex Mambo is that Runic Bomb. And Myth, we don't know the true value of the Pyromancer until that Runic Bomb gets used, right? One way or another. Hex Mambo will either steal something away or I could end up fizzling out. It'll be the next Stygian Beacon, though, that we might turn our eyes to. And if we have hit some of those 3-item power spikes across the board for the Oni Warriors, in fact, we have. Still waiting on a couple of those items, though, for Hex Mambo. Maybe hard-pressed to find a big fight here around the beacon.
Man, Prid win finish for Panatom. Some more CDR and a little bit of burst damage on the tail end of his ultimate as well. Means that these targets on Hex Mambo that have already struggled up against Johnny will only continue to do so. You need Hex Mambo's damage dealers to get involved soon. Julio's had a great performance in lane himself. Hawk maybe a bit off the mark with some of these golden apples, but since then has right that ship. Maybe once Spuddio starts to rotate to these engagements, things will start to turn around a little. Kha'Zix taking a play from Genetics' book, just being annoying and standing on the corner, but only delays the inevitable. The Chaos will control the control point once more. And now the Oni Warriors, 2% additional global movement speed
we like that.
and 10% additional structure damage. They'll make short work of any of these towers.
Yep, and movement speed, it's never going to feel bad, moving a bit quicker. Even if it's just 2%. Always feels nice. Structure damage could come in handy if you want to siege up one of these mid lane or maybe solo lane Tier 1 towers. The Fury and the Pyromancer are going to be slightly staggered out from one another, Myth. About a 45-second difference between Fury and Pyro. Between Pagon and Jake, haven't seen much just yet. Panatom, though, initiates onto Julio. Finally, an apple rolls through from Hawk. Catches out onto Awesome Jake, who's used Undying Glove already. Uh-oh. This is when the Oni Warriors make their money. They collapse in all suddenly into a team fight. Sot on 4.
Watch Johnny.
3 of them onto Julio. But Johnny, maybe still some gas in the tank, and Assassinate could make its way over the wall. Kha'Zix, though, chased down by Sot. And Sot's the one with all the gas in the tank. He's filled it up with the good stuff. 5 kills here in game 1. Another Assassinate, but this one weaves its way past Johnny, and there was an execute threshold anyway. Could be a triple in this fight. And it's the Assassinate that's actually still there for the Loki. And Fatal Strike nets a couple kills for Sot.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors. I mean, it's just these prolonged team fights now that are really coming back to bite Hex Mambo. The fight starts, it looks even, and then it keeps going, and it keeps going, and all of a sudden the Oni Warriors on their second wind. Just so much more powerful thanks to the sustain from Awesome Jake. And these delayed rotations from Pagon in particular have been crushing for Hex Mambo. Pagon of the last 2 team fights we saw around the Gold Fury and now here around the Pyromancer wasn't there from the offset. Shows up 20, 30 seconds into the fight and says, whoa, okay, no, ultimates are up. Maybe I go a little bit crazy here. Yep. And has done so every single time. Priority targets need to get addressed. And those priorities are Netroid, Pagon, and maybe you throw Panatom in that conversation. I wouldn't. He's more so a facilitator right now, especially with his highly defensive build. But Hex Mambo just have not had their opportunities to get into that backline. The dive potential that the desk highlighted between Loki and King Arthur, it really just hasn't happened yet.
Problem is Johnny's passive is also not unlocked. He's not like 2 and 6. He's just 000. So the Penta passive will be a few deaths away for this Loki. He'll hope to avoid that though and unlock a good team fight. Is it around this Oni Fury? Doesn't look like it. Hex Mambo. They're more concerned with the tier 1 tower in mid. Get some global gold for the team. Been a few assists here for Pagon. Haven't seen the full brunt of this Evo just yet. The storyline's been written around SOT and Pagon, or Panatom rather, handing a few kills over to the Achilles early in this game. And this is the trickle effect that can start to happen against the Oni Warriors. They'll get a few kills, but then they start to pull away with the objectives. This is a team that early on ran down their kills, ran down their wins. They diversified some of those win conditions, though, in the last few weeks of Phase 1, and we're just a better objective control team on top of what was also a really, really good and best-in-the-world team fight team.
And it is worth noting, though, that Hex Mambo have not fallen out of striking range here. Gold, relatively even, considering how far into the game we are. Experience, legitimately even right now as well. Maybe a half level here or there, but the majority of the targets on the Oni Warriors are approaching or already at level 20, so some of that experience gap deceptive. Hex Mambo, it's their standard style. Delay the game. They're starting to get to that point, but I haven't seen a portion of the team fight that they can start to lean on consistently, and that has been Hex Mambo's win con is, all right, 25 minutes, let's get it rolling. PvP is looking real good for the Oni Warriors. The best situations we've seen from Mambo are their disengage.
Yep. Oh, is this just sudden FG call from the Oni Warriors? You're 5v5 on the map. Spudio, though, over on left, so I'm wrong in the team fight, but right on the map, it's a 5v4 over here on right. Panatom eats the apple, sends a bit of damage back to his team, and maybe that evens the scales a bit, gives Hex Mambo a chance in this fight. Remember, you've got Awesome Jake for sustain. Spudio, this could pay off if somehow the Oni Warriors are delayed from an FG and Spudio keeps going, which he won't. Really just a tier 2 tower. So actually a really nice play for Hex Mambo. And Spudio, the ADC, snags the tier 2, and Hex Mambo prevent the FG.
Yeah, SOT caught by the spread of the golden apple there. I believe would have had enough damage on second combat dodge to do just enough to put Kha'Zix into that execute threshold, but because he is crippled out, forced to disengage and takes a bit too much poke on the tail end from Hawk as well. Strife and Unruly Magic to stick around. So the Oni Warriors would have likely re-pulled the Fire Giant there had they not taken so much damage, but with Spudio on map, generating pressure as well, forced to reset themselves defensively. Johnny locks eyes with Panatom. That's an easy grab. Assassinate early.
About to be locking eyes with the rest of the Oni Warriors. Assassinate and beads are gone, and that's enough for now. No more chase down. Stygian Beacon, it's about to spawn.
Well, he hits hard.
Hawk, oh no, he's used Aegis early. Crushing wave through a mono at the apple. Oh, and misses again. Hawk able to get out alive once more. Early Undying Love. Panatom searching for targets. No taunts on this one. Oni Warriors, they have dropped a couple of kills here recently, but maybe that's just opened the door to the Stygian Beacon, and this will unleash the Titans in just a little bit of time. Oni Warriors, the team that'll fight for fighting's sake. I'm interested to see what they can get done around Titan spawn as well.
No beads, no Aegis for Hawk. I'm thinking an opportunity for Panatom to start hunting. Just himself might have enough damage to threaten out the enemy mid laner. Surprised that Pagon survives that engagement because I just assumed that he'd picked up Blink because that's Pagon's MO on just about every mid laner. Instead, beads Aegis. A little bit more of that respect towards Hex Mambo.
Pyromancer goes to Hex Mambo. Bit of a meeting of the minds over on right, but Hex Mambo, the ones who call the coin flip correctly. Runic bomb for them. Oni Warriors won't be super concerned with that. You're right, though, and I want to harken back to what you had mentioned. Hex Mambo remain in striking distance despite the 5-0 solo or troll. Achilles got to be a concerning factor. But outside of the gold myth, what you've talked about, it's that team fight threat. It's been very back foot from Hex Mambo. Very, well, if we can shrug off the initial engage, maybe we can fight with the second engage, but haven't seen much of that. You're about to be full build on Spudio outside a starter item upgrade. Got that to look forward to. Titans Unleashed. They're going to march down mid lane. In Myth, Oni Warriors will send all 5 to mid right away, but might disperse and make full use of the map before the Titans officially meet.
Yeah, 3-2 split from the Oni Warriors. 3 on the gold, 2 on the right, just to make sure Fire Giant isn't pulled by Hex Mambo. Mambo will become aware of the positioning very shortly, as that gold free will be knocked down. Whichever team can make contact with the enemy Titan first, at a clear advantage, being able to drop some of that HP before it really turns into a team fight, so valuable. And that'll be the Oni Warriors, who have completely controlled the center of the map. They grab themselves a neutral objective and the defensive positioning in the center with 0 cost. Hex Mambo not able to get anything done here. That is a healthy Titan. This might just be a tier 2 tower.
Could be. Hex Mambo, again, backpedaling underneath the tier 2 in mid. Oni Warriors, they are full strength outside of a couple of relics. It's the Aegis for Pagon. That's 20 seconds away. Hawk, similar, but both of the actives.
That's burning.
Titan will be melted down quickly, and quickly enough for the Oni Warriors to be uninterested fighting any further. But if Hex Mambo stepped too far out, maybe assuming the Oni Warriors had backed away, could be dangerous. Johnny has stepped pretty far out. He's got a lot of damage for Netrioid. Oh, goodness! Pentaton plus Netrioid is an equation that Johnny had not calculated. And now there's an opening for 45 seconds. Hex Mambo without their Loki.
Oni Warriors have got so much time to play with here. It's Pagon and Awesome Jake throwing out some poke. They're very safe. A lot of movement speed between the two of them, as well as survivability with Undying Love still available. But I'd like to see them get a bit more done than just poke towards mid. Set up a gank in the jungle. Catch someone on the rotation in. TKO is valuable because you want the Fire Giant already pulled. Netroid's starting to slowly work through it.
That's right. Netroid working it down. Awesome Jake is there just to tank it up a bit further. SOT, a terrifying thought to run into for Hex Mambo. Panatom's on the other side of the engagement. A slow burn FG, but one that Hex Mambo seemingly simply won't be able to contest. Down it goes after about a 30-second burn. The Oni Warriors get it on everyone, and Hex Mambo shudder at the sight of SOT and Panatom stepping forward.
Hex Mambo just have not found their footing in the engagement. It'll be easy to find it. It'll be under your Phoenix or potentially a soft defense on these tier 2s. And base defense not weak from Hex Mambo. Discordia and Terra, very good in class, Mage and Guardian on base defense at stopping the aggression of just about anyone, especially a composition like this from the Oni Warriors that is really, really short range. You don't have any long range abilities here. It's all going to dedicate yourself. As Panatom, is this a catch?
As Panatom made the first mistake of the game for the Oni Warriors. Remains to be seen. If nothing else, he started off a fight.
Wow.
Oh, Pagon, Netrioid, the carries. They're low on the Oni Warriors.
That's
Hex Mambo have bought their time, and Hex Mambo have now bought a team fight. Julio on a double. After starting off 0-3, the King Arthur has ignited in this game. 28 minutes in, finally Hex Mambo find their first few kills. SOT, still 5-0, does not want to hand over any free gold to Hex Mambo. But it's Hex Mambo, Myth, with a big opening here, 35 seconds at least on 3 death timers.
Yeah, those runic bombs from earlier have already been expended, though, so they'll have to work through that Phoenix the old-fashioned way. Panatom and SOT, not the best suited for defense, but some low HP targets. Fatal Strike might be big.
This is awkward. A taunt onto Kha'Zix. SOT, a stun onto Kha'Zix. Fatal Strike, it's there. Wow, our Hex Mambo after being behind for the entirety of the game, considering an end. Panatom on a double taunt. Sot's got 5 kills, but 5 more to get if he wants to save this game.
It's too slow.
Back into the fountain he
50%.
goes. It is a slow burn. Oh man, Hex Mambo. The health bar's low. Pagon's back in. Pagon on a triple. Oh, that's unreal. Pagon, Sot, and the rest keep the game alive. Hex Mambo had their opening. Pagon slams the door in their face.
Panatom in the grayscale is taking the runic bomb with them, Dave. Do the Oni Warriors have enough time to knock down the base? 30 seconds on nearest respawn. SOT's already there. It might be tight timing. It's hard to call.
Oni Warriors, this game looked easy for a while. Then now suddenly it might not be. Myth, maybe a Phoenix. Maybe a Phoenix is the safe call here for the Oni Warriors team. They want to rumble into the base. There's only 1 tower left on the map. They've got everyone. 15 seconds left on Kha'Zix, 15 on Spudio. The Oni Warriors full strength. Pagon had 0 kills 45 seconds ago. He'll end the game with 3. And don't let the 1-0 Oni Warriors lead fool you. Hex Mambo gave him a scare at the end.
And talk about diversifying your playstyle. That's how we open up this set. This is a much slower Oni Warriors. Not a whole lot of objective play in this one. A lot of team fighting, but not a whole lot of kills either. And at the very end, it is the thinnest of margins that sees them coming out on top. Hex Mambo clearly have earned every bit of respect that they've got.
Time to go back and assess that runic bomb that Hex Mambo.
Dude, that might have been it. It might have been it.
It was close, man. Oni Warriors get the win here. As expected, as 66% of us expected, right?
Yeah, we all knew.
They were going to grab the win. A bit shakier, though. But I also don't want to let that distract us from how the vast majority of that game went, which was Sot control for the majority of that game. Oni Warriors not giving up any of the objectives. It's really just kind of an awkward fight where Hex Mambo had their opening.
Yeah, I mean, the Oni Warriors, it felt like once they had gotten the Fire Giant, the win left their sails. Like, they went slack. They relaxed a little bit. Okay, we've done it. And then it's this 3-man grouping in mid that's immediately punished by the 5 members of Hex Mambo. Everybody's reeling on defense. But cooler heads prevail, and I think you got to give MVP to SOT, man. I mean, he buys so much time on that Titan. I know it's a Pagon triple, but SOT did the work.
That's right. It's 5 kills in lane and just out of laning phase for SOT. Saves the game. Pagon also comes up big, as you point out there at the end with the Achilles. Unbelievable here. Oni Warriors, they hand the first loss of the event to Hex Mambo. 1 more to go. We'll see what they can get done in game 2 after this.
Well, howdy, folks, and welcome back into Smite Summer Masters. As we're on the final couple sets of our day here, it's Dimes, it's Frog on the desk. Frog, you're looking pretty good today, man.
Thank you.
You know, I like the outfit, but you know what you would look better in?
What?
You would look better in a Skulls t-shirt. A big shout out to Skulls. Couple new Masters t-shirts there featuring a new, but you got a black one, you got a white one. Some of the best fabric, softest, and just most wonderful feeling on the market. Head on over to shop.hi-rezstudios.com. Get yourself a Skulls Smite Summer Masters t-shirt, just like we did. Isn't that right, Frog?
Yeah, I got that merch at Worlds, dude. I wear it
Yeah.
to bed. It's
I've
so
been rocking
comfortable.
Skulls stuff since like the very beginning. Like
Yeah.
as soon as this partnership came to fruition.
Oh, even before.
Boop, boop, boop.
I was.
Oh, you're
on
like
that.
in on it?
I was in the meta, dude. Yeah, I was
All
on
right.
it.
Well, speaking of meta, Frog, Hex Mambo maybe taking a bit of a step back in their view of the meta as they find their first spill of this tournament to the still undefeated Oni Warriors.
That was quite a game because I really had faith in the Mambo as we were starting to go through that game. They definitely were a little bit behind early on for sure, but they got towards the late game, towards 25 minutes or so. They were only down 3K gold.
Yep.
They were pretty even in experience, and they got to the team fight phase, and that is their bread and butter. And sure enough, they finally found themselves a team fight win. They got a 3-0, and they decided to run it down. They decided we are going to end the game right here. We're going to hang our hat that we can indeed end the game. And man, how close they were to being right. But unfortunately, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and this is not one of those things. And so taking the Titan down to what looked like sub 100 HP
Negligible.
doesn't actually matter. You don't get any points for that. You only get points for actually taking the Titan down, which is what the Oni Warriors did approximately 30 seconds later as they all spawned up. Huge triple kill. You see it here. Solower Troll is up and is defending. Look at how low that gets. Man, it's just on the thinnest of margins. And Hex Mambo just so close, but not able to close it out.
Unbelievable. And as you saw in those replays, for the first 5 kills, to put them all on Solower Troll over there on the Achilles, one of the best mechanical players in the game, who apparently has been spending the majority of his life playing Smite these past. Dave and Miff ran the numbers on cast. It was like 17 hours a day of Smite or something ridiculous. Wow. Put in the streaming hours is Solower Troll. Surely turned up here in game number 1, 6-0-4.
Top damage.
And then, of course, Pagon coming through with the hero plays at the end to save the day. And running it down mid was the Oni Warriors to take game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the damage. Hawk had more damage than anybody in the game. I'm not sure this game was really decided on the Hex Mambo having a bad game. I wouldn't call it that at all. I think that they did their exact game plan. Their goal was to keep their head above water until they could find a win in a team fight. That's their bread and butter. And they did, and then they found a win in a team fight, and then they just made a bad decision, right? I mean, they decided to run it down, and I don't blame them for making that decision.
Sure.
I think I might have made the same decision. It was that close, right? You cannot call that in the moment. It is so difficult, especially with the pressure of being here and landing these boos. Honestly, I think if you're Hex Mambo, like I'm almost down for the salty run back.
Yeah, I mean, you say quote unquote bad decision, but like if maybe one extra ability, like one more cast,
one auto,
9 out of 10 times you make that play.
Yep.
Like that is not something where it's a coin flip, it's a 50-50. You go back to VOD review and think, maybe we could have played that more cautiously. I mean, if one auto attack, one ability cast, if Pagon literally has a second left on the respawn, we're sitting here having a completely different conversations about the Hex Mambo taking down the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely still reason to feel confident. If you're the Hex Mambo, you went in with confidence, you drafted your style of team fight play. I don't think there's really any reason to go away from that because the Oni Warriors did not really beat you play on field. They definitely got out to an early lead, and I certainly think that Panatom was making it work, pressure on map, early kills out to solo patrol. The Achilles look great. And I like the Oni Warriors draft as well. They brought their own meta to the table. I'm not saying either meta is right or wrong. I don't think we have enough data to decide on that point quite yet. I think both teams should feel confident in what they just brought to the table. It just needs to be maybe the Hex Mambo. I mean, if they really are going to rely on their late game team fight style of composition, late game team fight style of play, as much as they seem to, they're going to try and play around Johnny once they get into that late game. If that's going to be their goal, why jump the gun? Like if you get a 3 for 0, you've now hit your phase. You've kind of peeked over the top of the mountaintop. You've gotten a view of the greener pastures. You're not necessarily at the greener pastures. You just tried to parachute from the top of the mountain all the way down to those greener pastures. If you're the Hex Mambo, you got a peek. You're like, oh my god, we could end the game. But dude, if it's only going to get better.
Sure.
Like it's only going to get later into the game. You're only going to, in theory, have better chances to win those fights. They could have gotten the Phoenix, got out. They might have even gotten away with another tier 2 tower. They could have gotten another Phoenix. They could have went back and had another Fire Giant fight with Fire Minions pushing into the base, right? They had all of these other plays that they could have made to try and slow things down a little bit and once again rely on their team fight style. Instead, I don't think they jumped the gun. Once again, it's not like a bad decision inherently.
Sure.
But it's sort of where are you going to say your play style relying on? If you are drafting for those late game team fights, play around the late game team fights. Don't play around a base race.
So my follow-up question to that, Frog, is do you think this game 1 gaff follows the Hex Mambo, either mentally or on play, into game number 2? Do you think they approach game 2 with more caution? Do you think they play on the back foot to start? I mean, if they do the Oni Warriors take advantage and press the gas pedal and force them all the way back? How does the Hex Mambo adjust from game number 1, from that little, called a chink in the armor, that little jump in the gun, as you said,
right,
and take it into game number 2?
To be honest, I think it is hard to say mentally, right? This is an SCC team, hasn't seen as much LAN experience in the guys at the other side of the booth.
Sure.
And so it's tough. It can be tough to adapt mentally from a decision like that where you go all in on something and it is so close and you end up losing the game off of it when you could have won the game with one additional auto attack. So, I mean, it can be tough to bounce back mentally. But from what I've seen from the boys on Hex Mambo this weekend, their mentals have been strong. They've got that calm confidence that they brought into game number 1. I'm hoping that they are not mentally shattered after that game number 1.
Well, you talk about adaptations. The first one that piques my interest here is this Aphrodite taken off the board. Clearly, the Hex Mambo think Awesome Jake performed a little bit too admirably. There we go. Got that one locked down. On that Aphrodite pick, that's got to go by the wayside. Baba Yaga and Kali No say the Oni Warriors. Robin? The final ban here for the Hex Mambo, and the Oni Warriors shoot back with an AK.
Yeah, these bans, once again, going towards Johnny similarly as they have in the past, taking away that Baba Yaga from Hawk. Such a difficult pick to deal with when you get that prophetic cloak online.
So it begins.
So it begins. The potential for the salty run back here is high. I mean, Hex Mambo, and one of the things we said on the desk for the first segment was that these two teams very clearly have a rift in what they consider to be meta, right? And they were going, Oni Warriors were going a slightly different direction, didn't really necessarily affect what Hex Mambo were going, but critically, the one ban that you've missed, you now take away the Aphrodite, you leave open the Thor.
also this hell. I mean, thinking this might go to support, thinking this might go into the hands of the mid laner Pagon, who just played a very similar style of mid laner in Habwa last game. Certainly something to keep an eye on. Circling back around to the store that you just mentioned, into the hands of Solo or Troll or Panatom.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go Sot. To be honest with you, I think Sot. Well,
I mean, we saw Baskin run it down.
We did. We saw Baskin have an excellent performance on it, and Sot, I think, back in the day, sort of not invented the Thor solo, but brought it to popularity during a meta where nobody else was really playing it. And so it's sort of a comfort pick for him, but at the same time, I know the game that Sot just had on the Achilles and how much they potentially value Achilles here in this composition, right? You add the hell to that, you get a little bit of CC immunity, you get that same healing that you've been able to get the last couple of compositions from the Oni Warriors. On the other side, though, the Hex Mambo go into what has been working, and this time, instead of grabbing Hawk up top and going for that Discordia, they go for the tier. They want Julio on something that has a little bit more presence, a little bit more engage opportunity. This King Arthur, he just spins and wins his way into the back lane. But he has to walk there. That's the critical portion. He does not get to Lawbringer there quite like Tyr does. That engage from Tyr is unique. It's pretty much the reason that we've seen him so heavily prioritized this weekend, and Julio has looked great on the pick thus far. So I love this adaptation from the Mambo.
And this is a Nami pickup. Only 2 pickups so far here at Smite Masters, with other hunters like the Roms, the Hachis, the Kerns, things like that being prioritized here. Is Inami not particularly popular? What is it about this ADC that really slots into the Oni Warriors?
I think it's just the pressure, right? You give it over to Netroid, and Netroid, once upon a time, was one of the most, still is one of the most aggressive hunters in the league. I think maybe Vaporish Coast has surpassed him a little bit in just wanting to take 1v1s, but there was a time when Netroid was on the Kings, and he had soloed at one point every single other player in the league in one phase of the split. And you do that a lot with pressure ADCs, and Izanami is a premier one. You get to clear the wave, entirely hit the wave with those boomerang auto attacks. You get the additional pressure, and as well, you bring a little bit of utility into that fight, right? Tyr is diving you, and you silence him. You interrupt a Fearless. You interrupt a combo. Similar to Terra, she's got those combos that they're running through during the fight. Depends on what jungle pickup is gone here for Johnny on the Mambo, but Izanami definitely has some self-peel tools as well.
No more hero plays, says the Hex Mambo, as Habwa falls by the wayside here. Serket taken off the board. Oni Warriors final ban phase. Hits on the Discordia and the Dodgy, curious enough. Kind of an interesting shot there with Johnny. We've seen the Dodgy a couple times. Unsuccessful, I think, every single time. So a little curious there that one's getting taken off the board, but it doesn't matter. Can't pick it anyway.
Yeah,
so moving along.
I dislike the Dodgy ban, to be honest. I don't know why you're doing it.
It's kind of a lost ban.
Well, it's also, you have a Hell. You have a cleanse against the Palau. And critically for me, they've left Bakasura up for Johnny to pick. They banned that in the second phase last time. So we'll be interesting to see if he decides to go back in that direction. But bans have swapped up for the Mambo as well. Ra going unbanned will now be picked up for the Oni Warriors. Not just BennyQ that's going to be prioritizing this pick. Pagon, a very different pick from the Habwa, right? You don't necessarily get in the front line as easily. You have to play more ranged, but if it looks anything like BennyQ did a little bit earlier on in the day, hitting those ranged snipes, this is a dangerous pick to be a part of.
And so far, as the Hex Mambo think about their next 2 selections, running a bank time here, this feels like an Oni Warriors crafted composition, right? This does not feel your standard Hachi tier Terra. Not that there's anything wrong with those 3 top-tier picks, but it feels like the Oni Warriors are really leaning into a strategy they've handpicked for this Hex Mambo squad.
Yeah, it's definitely fitting of their own meta, no doubt about it. You still get this healer support, this Hell likely going back to support for Awesome Jake, so very similar vibes to what he's been playing. Still a little bit ambiguous on whether or not this Thor will end up in the jungle for Panatom or over in that solo lane. but this is where we're going on the side of the Mambo, and this is also what I was worried about. They ban away the Discordia, so Hawk has to go one god deeper into that pool. The last time he had to do that, he went to Giannis. He does the same thing again. I liked him a lot when we saw him forced onto this pick. He had really solid aggressive portals. He had really solid through space and times. He did a lot in terms of utility for the team. On the other side, though, or not on the other side, rather, the next pick down, this is what you sacrificed when you banned Daji. You left this Bakasura open, and I think this fits so well into a drop everything composition from Hex Mambo. You drop the Terra ultimate, you Lawbringer in from tier, you threw space and time in, and all of a sudden your entire team is occupying one jungle corridor, and Johnny cleans up everything. It flows so well through the team fight for the Mambo.
If the Hex Mambo are looking for that mid to late game team fight, as they always do, this is the comp to get it done. Meanwhile, the Oni Warriors are going to finish out their draft phase by picking up the Susano for Panatom, one of the premier Susano players in the league. Only seen it once so far. Not a fantastic look, but if there's one player's name I'm looking at to take the Susano and make it happen, it's the jungler for the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm not doubting Panatom on the Susano. I was doubting Susano as a pick a little bit into this meta. You go a little bit towards making players do less damage, making players a little bit tankier, and all of a sudden Susano, who you're typically building full damage, finds it harder and harder to like one-shot these characters and then get out. And so you don't necessarily have that same in and out potential. But if anybody is finding those flanks and finding that effectiveness, it's going to be Panatom. And he makes this pick look like a really early game pick, when on paper it's a very mid-game and sort of into the late game pick potentially. But Panatom loves to get involved early, especially on the Susano, and it's a really, really good facilitator pick. You have more setup than you anticipate. You've got the Typhoon coming through, and then the Ra ult to follow it as well. There's a lot of potential for setup, and that also means you've got this semi-global pressure from the solo lane. That means that Solo Troll has, you know, the ability to get involved earlier on in these team fights, doesn't have to do as much to rotate into a fight around the Pyromancer or something like that. It's a very aggressive draft from the Warriors.
Frog, I gotta ask the obligatory question. An Oni Warriors composition that is tailor fit to their playstyle. A composition from the Hex Mambo that they've been playing all weekend long. Are we going to game 3, or the Oni Warriors bringing it home?
After all is said and done, Hex Mambo have made me a believer. And so I can't say anything else. We are definitely pushing to game number 3. I'm not even going to leave myself an out. We are definitely, listen to that, Dimes, definitely going to game 3.
Frog, there is only one way to find out. It's the Oni Warriors, it's the Hex Mambo, and two of the best to ever get it done. It's Dave and Myth.
Myth twice? That's crazy. Myth twice and then me? You're one of the best to ever do it, Myth. A second one of you is the other one. And then there's Dave. And that's okay.
It's okay.
It's hard sitting next to a goat on 2 separate occasions.
I know, man. They're always eating grass and neighing.
Do you know what? No. I was going to say, do you know what sound?
Bleat. Yes, do it. Yeah, go ahead. Do your bleat.
Bleat.
Okay.
Bleat. That's the sound
and
a
this is
goat
why
makes.
they all love you.
And that's why 63% of Twitch chat still leaning for the Oni Warriors.
That's 1% less, I think.
No, there was 66. There was
Oh,
66
no.
to the other math, 34.
Nice.
I will say this for Frog. Stalwart in his belief. Not only definitely once, which is an absolute statement, repeated it.
Yeah, he's a Sith Lord. Speaking in absolutes, man. I thought we taught him better.
I thought we did. But Myth, are you carrying his resolve that Hex Mambo are going to take us on to a game 3?
I do like Hex Mambo's composition. I think that there are 2 critical pieces in the team fight, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, getting all the way into the team fight, but why not? Julio and Johnny. Critically, they need to deal with Panatom, and just Panatom. If Panatom is dealt with, Hawk is going to have a free game, and Kha'Zix and Spudio can do all they want, you know, standard Guardian, standard Hunter stuff. I think that is perhaps the most important interaction on map. Otherwise, the rest of the Oni Warriors are probably just either peeling for Pagon or trying to facilitate Panatom on his ever constant and vigilant hunt, trying to catch Hawk out in the jungle, right? Susano, one of the, if not the only assassin in the game that is well suited at chasing out a Yanis. So some key interactions I'll be keeping my eyes on. But all that could just go out the window if all of a sudden we have an explosive early game that completely tips the scales, right? That's assuming a 25-minute team fight at an even state.
Well, SOT was the explosive early game. SOT plus Panatom over in solo lane, right? I mean, a 5-0 start on the Achilles. It's a Thor this time. We saw Thor early this weekend in some of the SEC matches.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Wasn't the best. Oh, no.
Oh, he's out.
Wow. SOT is going to live, I presume. Yes, he will. He'll hammer away. Julio nearly getting a solo kill on a solo or troll. The Thor is a pick, Myth. We've seen mixed success from this weekend. Earlier on in some of the SEC matches, didn't quite synergize with what those players were hoping for. We've also seen the double dunk Styx Ferryman style of Thor and Ratatosker game. It looks really good in Baskin's hands. I love the rotation potential of this pick. I mean, you talk about a lot of what Hex Mambo want to do, Myth. Panatom was your highlight of who they need to shut down on the Oni Warrior side. What's the Oni Warrior style of composition here? Are you hoping that you could pick someone out, maybe like this? Johnny's an afterthought. Who's expecting a 4-man rotation at 2 minutes over in mid? Johnny sure wasn't. Oni Warriors sure were, and it's Panatom on first blood.
Yeah, I wonder what the communication's like from Hex Mambo in a situation like that, where both Kha'Zix and Spuddy are sitting there like, you know, guys, couldn't exactly say where Jake and Netroid are, but they certainly aren't here. Sure hope they aren't with you. And Johnny says they are. And an easy chase down, well played by Panatom, by the way, to hold on to the dash from that third ability until post-leap from Johnny, and an easy lockdown immediately afterward. What is the game plan for the Oni Warriors? This looks to me to be a much more standard Oni Warriors game plan, which is get aggressive everywhere and always, right? Look for your boxing potential in lane. Have SOT make those early rotations. We've seen Jake and Netroid now make a rotation at the minute-and-a-half mark for a fight on mid-camp. So you got to imagine they'll be doing the same thing for a Pyromancer once that spawns.
Man, Johnny's going to walk face first into Panatom and SOT over on right. This time, not 4 members of the Oni Warriors awaiting him. So Johnny will leap away. He'll be just fine. Pagon with different styles of picks, Myth, but maybe similar outcomes. You got the Insta-Gib ultimate. It's not a crushing wave this time. It's a Searing Pain. Saw his brother perform really well on this pick earlier on today, the Ra. Is there enough setup around it, though, that gives you confidence in Pagon, or does Pagon even need the setup to hit those ultimates?
Well, that is a lofty question you've sent my way. Does Pagon need help landing his ult? Probably not, but he does have it if he does need it.
Yeah, let's get existential.
Right, SOT's got the wall stun from downtown, the Anvil of Dawn, things like that. Pretty easy to follow up on for Pagon if he's playing heads up. Even a pull-in from Panatom, if you're timing it just right, should be just enough. So I'm not concerned for Searing Pain. I think the concern lies with Hex Mambo and how they're going to survive it, because you better believe a fair few will be finding their way into these priority targets. The concern for Pagon is the dive from Hex Mambo. Bakasura, just as fast as a Ra. Will also have Haste and Katana eventually, generally in third item, if Johnny's builds are anything to go by.
Hey, didn't he
in
set up for that
pass.
one?
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to throw. He's practicing. That's a practice shot. It's a low cooldown.
That's right. Got to get things heated up a bit before the actual team fights break out. Can I ask some more questions about Hawk, right? Through space and time.
That's way harder to hit.
Yeah, it is. Also, more utility in that ultimate. Provides differing avenues for your team to get in and out of team fights. Now, what's different from earlier games is that through a first blood, Oni Warriors have actually pulled the 2,000 gold lead. Remember, we were sitting at 1.5K despite...
It's 2,000 already?
It's 1.5K right now,
hey,
depending on where the waves are. We were at this point 25 minutes in with a 5-kill lead for the Oni Warriors in Game 1. So first blood, about 500 of that, and the rest of the farm is starting to add up. This is where the Oni Warriors have made a lot of their money throughout the phase as well. Slowly pulling away a lead, and then suddenly forcing a fight against you. Sod has used his wall, but now used his hammer. Johnny could have an opportunity, but is not immediately ganking that side of the map. Really about these junglers and where they want to set their pace, and Johnny's gotten back into this game, back into the farm game, keeping pace with Panatom quite nicely after falling for first blood. Panatom lurking between Tier 1 and Tier 2.
He's freaking me out.
I know, this is scary. Has Blink. Won't use it. Instead it'll be a purple buff invade.
You know, the Oni Warriors have actually got a very good composition at looking at early neutral objectives. I know we talk a whole lot about, E-set and how she's like one of the best mages at really contesting Gold Fury or playing around it. Hold that thought as Hawk. Forced to use that ultimate defensively. Small loss on utility, but at the end of the day, not a massive deal, not just yet. But Ra is in that conversation, Dave. Of,
Sure.
You know, you can get onto the Fury and you could pull it, and you're not really sacrificing too much because you've got that heal constantly ticking. You've got really good objective secure as well. So I wonder if the Oni Warriors try and expedite their pace around the PvE. Last time around in Game 1, it was pretty slow going around those Furies and those Pyromancers. Wasn't the standard breakneck pace that we've associated so closely with the Oni Warriors. I think this time around they've got a composition that could really get it done.
Yep. And if they choose to press down on the gas a bit, it'll be up to Hex Mambo to be close by. You do not want to let Oni Warriors bleed you out early in the game because we know they can team fight better than just about anyone in the league, especially when they've got a gold lead on their side. SOT, though, he's gone a little defense early. Breastplate of Valor maybe hoping to get some Anvil of Dawns going, get those ultimates back off of cooldown here shortly, because a team that loves to rotate. Think about where some of those kills came from early on the Achilles. Maybe Sot can look towards mid, something like that here in the next few minutes. Get a little extra additional value. But it is still this timer that we've talked about with Johnny. You're looking later into the game. Johnny Penta earlier on today. Could absolutely get it done on a pick like this. Hawk from mid doesn't hit his ultimate, but 4 members of Hex Mambo are here on left. Won't end up fully ganking. Maybe if that ultimate connects, you're considering going in a bit further. As I'll always say, I admire the attempt.
Yeah, nice try from Hawk, and if it does connect, likely would have rode those portals in to get involved with the rest of his team. That small exchange we saw between Spudio and the duo lane of the Oni Warriors is one that we can expect to see a fair deal going forward. Just ultimate slow, okay, I've cleansed it. Good luck. Johnny. He should be all right. He still has leap. That's a disengage, easy call, but a TKO nonetheless. Drop him down to 50%. Maybe a Fury call.
Maybe. Pagon and Panatom. Panatom without Blink makes a difference there. If Johnny's hovering around, Pagon has Blink, maybe one more big initiation. Jake drops a ward, I believe, over on Fury. Maybe just checks it, but just face checks it. Set another purple buff. Man, these last couple purple buffs just getting taken away from Hex Mambo. 1 level lead for both Jake and Netrioid. Neutral farm starting to bleed away just a bit. Johnny goes up and over the wall. Luckily, Kha'Zix and Hawk close enough by that Johnny had a little bit of extra safety over in his corner on the left side of the map. Panatom's just, the way he lurks, you know, he just kind of hangs out and waits for you to make a mistake. Johnny, despite falling early, has really picked up the farm game and has a 1 level lead.
Good luck keeping up with Bakasura. If you're not playing Surcat, matching pace with Bakasura on his jungle rotations and his jungle clear is just so difficult after that Golden Blade gets finished up. And as you said, Panatom has been doing a lot of lurking in the sidelines and waiting in purple buffs or waiting around these mid camps trying to find opportunities to gank. Haven't exactly seen the same from Johnny as of yet. He's been much more content to hang out in the jungle and just continue to farm up, and I think he's right to do so. But you have to make use of that level lead eventually. Generally, it's like a 2 to 3 level lead. Once you're in that range, you feel like any fight you take is a good one.
Yeah.
So it could be that Johnny waits for that. But if that's the case, Panatom could very easily adjust his own playstyle. Once you start to realize you're falling behind and not a whole lot of it is getting accomplished in your own.
Oh, Panatom face first.
Good lord.
Into Hawk and Johnny. Hex Mambo, a simple kill over in mid. Just no vision. And a 1-2 punch from a Yanis and a Bakasura. Pagon traded some damage back, I'll add. Hawk was low, but no chance. That'll settle the score a little bit here. But again, needed timing. 2,500 gold all of a sudden for the Oni Warriors in the lead. And despite the kills going the other direction, this will help out a little bit. A pick on Awesome Jake. Netrioid actually steps forward. Drops.
Well, they're healthy.
Silence. Johnny leaps away. Sot is up. Gotta be out of range. Kha'Zix sidesteps the ultimate, but has to sidestep the wall as well. Not enough damage from the Oni Warriors to complete the dive. But you always gotta be heads up when the Oni Warriors are around because they'll make a play like that.
Man, that is such a windfall for Hex Mambo there. The pick onto Panatom immediately followed up by surviving that initiation on the left side. SOT utilizes his teleport as well as his ultimate, so miss out on an entire wave to his tier 1 tower. That's experience and gold lost. Julio the entire time, just allowed to farm up in his lane. Should be benefiting from a slight lead now. Maybe an entire level there. So the Oni Warriors, not for lack of trying, come up empty, but in trying have left open the door, and Hex Mambo always find their opportunities.
They do. Team with no give up in the vocabulary. Game 1 is a really good indicator of that. Oni Warriors really controlled things, never really widened that gap. Hex Mambo found their fight nearly ended Game 1. What was it that you said? By the thinnest of margins, or something like that? It was
thin margins. That sounds like me. That sounds like anybody that watches that game, though, right?
That's true. I'm trying to give you an opportunity to gas yourself a bit. You know, that's like some of the best phrasing I've ever heard, and that's good by you. That's the way it ends, though, in Game 1. Game 2 here, Hex Mambo have fought their way back in. Stygian Beacon, it'll spawn here in 30. Tier 1 tower.
Ooh, watch out.
Ooh, again. Through space and time out of mid, doesn't hit. Jake fills the health bars up a bit further. Kha'Zix and Johnny are in. Goodness, out of nowhere. The rotation from the Giannis. The assistance from the Bakasura. And a 2-kill swing for Hex Mambo. You don't need the ultimate to hit if Hawk is able to teleport his team to left.
Yeah, I mean, that's twice now that the Oni Warriors have tried to aggress on that Tier 1 tower. This time, though, Tier 1 tower removed, but at what cost? 2 members immediately, the dual lane dead. But Stygian Beacon timing, it's the Oni Warriors are going to grab that one for themselves, and the Hex Mambo, what do they get off their kills? They don't return the tower. They don't grab the Gold Fury. It's kills for kills' sake. Close out the experience lead, but gold significant still in favor of the Oni Warriors.
Yep.
I think experience, though, will become a major conversation very soon. I'm looking at the jungle. Surprisingly, it's Panatom who has caught himself back up. I thought we'd seen a much larger gap at this point. Johnny just now taking over to level 13 to the 12 of Panatom on the other side. Mid laners even, support even, still a slight lead for Netroid.
Yep.
I don't know how the Oni Warriors do it, man. It just seems like whenever they die, they come back just as strong.
They do. Well, dying with a bit of a lead helps you come back to life, at least even. That's assisting the Oni Warriors here in game number 2. An elimination game, I might add, an important one. Hex Mambo got to win 2 straight against a team that has not lost a set at all here in Season 10 of the Smite Pro League.
At all in general. I mean, this team has never tasted loss.
I mean, they've lost like game 1 of a best of 3.
I said what I said.
And you meant it. And you know what? There's a way you can twist that to where you're right. They have not lost a set at all. This roster has. Grouping for the Oni Warriors over on left. Could consider a Gold Fury at this point in the game if you talked a little bit about the objective potential of the team.
Oof.
Hawk just wide.
Well, they're still moving up.
Space and time, but still going to take those portals forward. Also, Earthen Fury gets used by Kha'Zix there, so a couple big ultimates down. It's the same play, run back. Let's see if we can catch a snipe. If not, maybe we'll portal our way through, find an unsuspecting member of the Oni Warriors. But Hex Mambo have disengaged. Wondering if the Oni Warriors were going to take that as an opportunity for the Gold Fury, but they'll think twice.
Yeah, this time the difference is the Oni Warriors were ready for that rotation, even if the fight had made its way to them, and it's a fight that they didn't want to take. SOT was hovering nearby in mid, would have been able to get involved with that Anvil of Dawn. Panatom was over there, still had that Typhoon for disengage, so plenty of resources that Hex Mambo needed to contend with still if they wanted a clean team fight there. But it is worth noting that this time around, the Oni Warriors have been trying to get aggressive. Game 1, it felt like both teams were resigned to a much slower pace. It was fine. Nobody cared. Farm up in lane. Let's wait for the team fight. This time around, for the first 8 or so minutes, the Oni Warriors were constantly aggressive in lane. Awesome Jake and Netroid made their home on that Tier 1 tower. But Hex Mambo and their play on field were able to slow them down.
Yep.
How long can you keep the tide at bay? Not very long. Pyromancer to the Oni Warriors with 0 fight back. But how do you evaluate the value of a Pyromancer? It's with the Runic Bomb. We'll have to wait till that's used.
Yep, might get used around one of these towers, one of these neutral objectives. Nice wall from SOT. Only in that it forced Kha'Zix into an awkward spot, but underneath his Tier 1 tower still had plenty of safety. Now everyone from both teams making their way towards left. SOT back to base for a reset, maybe a power spike. Yes, finishes his Genji's guard. Haven't seen much from either of these solo laners, Myth. However, thinking we're just a moment away from a Tyr and a Thor making their presence known in a team fight.
Yeah, Julio's hit some pretty significant power spikes as well. That Relic Dagger means that that Blink will be available frequently but has elected to go towards beads, concerned with maybe the CC chain of SOT and Netroid, those silences, and so won't have teleport. Whereas when SOT initiates, if he's forced back to base, he'll be able to rejoin his team very quickly, essentially 2 lives to play with for the Thor on the Oni Warriors. It's just the one for Julio. Blinking beads. A very aggressive lineup in the relics there. And that's mirrored by his jungler as well. But haven't seen him make those rotations. He has to be very choosy, Julio that is, on when he does make those rotations, as he hasn't got the teleport, whereas SOT can just about go wherever he wants and be anywhere else at a moment's notice. Yep. I wonder, do the Oni Warriors pull the trigger soon? I really thought we would see them move in towards that Gold Fury. And even if the fight doesn't go their way, sustain advantage over to the Oni Warriors as well. Terra's got some healing, but she's not matching the output of a Ra and a Hell.
Yep.
So it feels like anything where you could fight for elongated periods of time, if you can stretch out that dance around the Pyromancer, around the Gold Fury, it would only further favor the Oni Warriors.
Warriors got to like what they're seeing from that Hell Myth. Top player damage in the game right now through 17 minutes on the 1 assist. Plenty of poke, also plenty of sustain, as you've mentioned, for the rest of the team. Also, one of Jake's amazing picks. Jake's mage support win rate.
100%.
Yeah, very, very high throughout phase number 1.
On sets. 100% on sets.
Right. Not individual games.
Because they have tasted loss.
Right, they have
you were right.
At one point. And they didn't like the taste. And they don't let it weigh on them for too long. They end up winning every set that they play. It does feel like you're just kind of balancing again in the same way that we were in game 1. This time, though, you don't have SOT on the 5 kill swing that you did. In fact, you have Hex Mambo with a slight kill lead, slight experience lead, but you're not setting this pace, the Oni Warriors, that we've come to know all throughout phase 1. I wondered if we would see a bit of a different look team with some of the changes. A little more tankiness, a little less damage. Does that affect the Oni Warriors and how they want to play? Through 1 game. Yes, maybe 1.5. Looks a little bit different, but still a team with great shot calling. Always seem to be on the same page as one another. But Hex Mambo are starting to hit that point here, Myth. Johnny's got Golden Blade Phalanx, that kin size. Got to be feeling really good for this Bakasura. So you're starting to hit some damage out of one of your late game carry picks as well.
Beacon spawning up soon. Julio postured a little bit more so towards the center of the map. SOT does have the teleport. We'll be able to join his team, but would have likely liked to have held that a little bit longer. Jake, that's a lot of damage.
It is. A regurgitate from Johnny. It zones Jake. Shotgun blast out of Hawk. Catches out the Hell. Now Panatom's got to be concerned about where his exit path is. Julio, though, be careful. You're beneath the Tier 1 tower, and the rest of the Oni Warriors can chase you down. The wall sets up for Pagon. We'll go 1 for 1. Jake for Julio. Stygian Beacon, though, looks like it'll be conceded over to Hex Mambo. So a small mid-lane scrap ends up at a 1 for 1.
1 for 1, but TKO on 2 from the Oni Warriors. And Hex Mambo relatively healthy still. May have been able to look a little bit elsewhere on the map.
This Gold Fury will not die.
Yeah, this Gold Fury is not taking any damage either. Neither side willing to commit themselves there. I thought, considering SOT was forced to use the teleport just to get into that engagement and also forced to use that ultimate, might have been the difference maker that opens that door to Hex Mambo, but instead, it's Oni Warriors on reset to the Pyromancer.
Ooh. Flip a coin. Weighted coin for the Oni Warriors and their second Pyromancer of the game. Still, the Gold Fury stands strong. At this point in the game, I mean, it would feel great, but goodness, neither team. Now we've maybe reached the point where it's not worth throwing a team fight away over the first Gold Fury of the game, right? SOT hammers forward, and a portal out from Hawk means a Tier 1 to the Onis. They have lost, the Oni Warriors have, just the 1 Tier 1 tower over on the left. They add their second of the game, though, in Hex Mambo's mid lane. Finally, maybe? Nope, just ward coverage from Awesome Jake. Though Hex Mambo keeping tabs on where SOT is.
Yeah, we're waiting on some significant power spikes as well. This build that we've seen now twice from Pagon, the Ethereal Staff, not Warlock Staff this time around, Spear of Desolation, it's great. You're statted perfectly at 6 slot, but it is slow. It's slow and it's very expensive, so could be that the Oni Warriors are waiting on a little bit more penetration or the Soul Reaver proc or something like that before they're willing to all in on an initiation or an engagement. I'm excited to see the SOT dunk wall into Searing Pain and who is going to survive that a little bit later on. Hex Mambo going to try their absolute best to prevent that sort of engagement from happening. And again, that does come down in large part to both Julio and Johnny, those frontliners. Kazakhs, I think, a little bit more restricted to hang in that back line. No, Dave, stop teasing me, man.
Come on.
You're scaring them away from it.
No, that was,
keep it down.
I got to wait until they bite. Right. Spooked them away. Spooked Hex Mambo away from the Gold Fury, but maybe baited them into a fight. Dash forward from Kazakhs, as well as an Earthen Fury. It's a backpedal from the Oni Warriors.
He's very alone.
He is super, super alone. And it looks like that's how he'll die. Julio actually re-engages a couple of runic bombs.
He should be
And
dead
he plays
too.
Forward. Down goes Sod. He's found Hawk. And Hawk is walled off once more. This is the opening we wondered if the Oni Warriors would find, and they found it. 2 already for Net. Net has dashed over the wall. Sod lives.
Still alive.
Johnny needs one more auto.
No.
He'll never find it. But Spudio gallops forward. And really, it's just a 2-for-1. Oni Warriors with a big fight. Lower health bars on Hex Mambo's side. And a good 2-kill swing for Netrioid.
Man, SOT does so much in that team fight. I was talking about for the first 20 minutes, it's going to be Panatom chasing out Hawk every single time. How could I have forgotten that SOT is just as capable on this Thor, keeps Hawk isolated for the entirety of the team fight, nearly sets up for the kill. That wall connects, but not able to follow up himself. Well played by Johnny, peeling out for his own mid laner, but it's the Oni Warriors at the end of the day. They come out massively ahead off that exchange. A couple kills, a Gold Fury as well, pushing themselves even further in the lead. That gold lead has been nursed for a while.
Yep.
Now starting to grow up a little bit to that 4,000 mark. But 22 minutes into the game, I mean, is that enough to separate you? I think maybe the largest separation is map state for one. The Oni Warriors in a much more favorable map state, having taken out that mid-tier 1 tower. But also it's the 2 runic bombs in pocket that I'm keeping my eyes on. That's 2,000 true damage on whatever structure or neutral objective you elect to move in towards. And 22 minutes in, call me crazy. We watched a lot of Smite throughout the last decade. I think that might be the magical Fire Giant time.
Has your life changed in the last 10 years, Miff?
No, I was playing Smite, and I still am.
I'm still sitting around and playing Smite.
Talk about it a lot more now, though.
You do. You do. And you're good at it, Miff.
I appreciate it.
You should do it for a living.
I won't quit my day job.
It's understood. Oni Warriors now can send their grouping to the right. Again, sometimes it's a team that they don't necessarily need the gold lead, they just need some confidence. Awesome Jake, though, may have been caught out by Julio. Jake able to just wander away. Johnny has now gone back in. Johnny can't find the kill once more. Oh no, SOT is up in the sky. The dunk won't hit, but instead he's found a wall in the back of the fight. Sod with his first, just short of the second, but the rest of the Oni Warriors still have damage. Netrioid's on a killing spree. But Hawk trading blows with the rest of the Oni Warriors. Everyone's getting in the kill column. Another close fight, but another 1-kill advantage for the Oni Warriors.
The Oni Warriors are getting so much value from their sustain, Dave. It's ridiculous. There is an Ankh on the side of Hex Mambo, but clearly there needs to be more. Divine Ruin, sure. Let's get a Brawler's Beat Stick. Let's look towards some contagions. Let's make this healing go away for Hex Mambo, because the Oni Warriors have just slipped out of so many of these engagements. Jake's living with sub 100 HP. Pagon's done it once or twice now as well. SOT survives for 2 ability rotations longer than I thought he would have. And the Oni Warriors, by thin margins once more, able to win out on the engagement. Pyromancer will go into their pocket. Make sure that your runic bombs remain at 2. And Hex Mambo still struggling to find a solid teamfight win.
They have been. I'm not sure it'll start around the Stygian Beacon. A couple minutes away then from the Titans unleashing. Didn't see much from the Titan fight in game number 1. Kind of wandered down the lanes. Teams are dealing with them relatively quickly. I'd argue we're in a similar map state. Game state a little bit different. I mean, we are a bit further out of control than we were in game 1. And the Oni Warrior, my argument was always the Oni Warriors are looking for a reason to fight anyway. Maybe a Titan fight kind of ushers us closer to that last big swing. Say what you will about Hex Mambo. This is a team that has really showed up this weekend. They've impressed us. Nearly take game 1 from the Oni Warriors. They've got a big hill to climb. They want to keep their tournament lives alive.
And I think it starts, might be, just begins and ends at this Fire Giant. You cannot allow the Oni Warriors to take this one for themselves. Their siege potential is just ridiculous with the amount of sustain that they've got in their draft. They will remain on your Phoenix line indefinitely. So I agree with Hex Mambo. Group up, make sure this one doesn't go down for free. It won't be easy. to stop the Oni Warriors. Again, the longer a fight goes, the better it is for them.
Panatom, are you in trouble in mid? Yes, but it's not the ultimate price that Panatom has to pay. Oh, goodness, Hawk. One more portal through. Titans will be in mid.
Where's he going?
Sot's going towards Spudio. It's good eyes from Yuma. If I didn't catch it, Spudio's got to use his ult once more to get out of this fight. Titans wander down the mid lane. Maybe Oni Warriors setting the bait one more time. In all likelihood here, enough towers left in mid. Maybe just Oni Warriors deal with the Titan. Send Hex Mambo to deal with their Titan after that. We've already seen how, if one team deals with it quickly, you're going to have a small opening here. Maybe some alone time around the FG.
Maybe. At least a POI that Hex Mambo will be forced to address. Looking at the positioning of Panatom towards the edge of this team fight, I got to lean forward for this one, Dave. I think the Oni Warriors, they want this engagement.
Sot gets beads away from Hawk. Hawk doesn't have his ultimate back. Oh, it's Portal. Right into a Fearless from Julio.
Close.
Titan is going to go back to the Tier 2 tower over in mid. Gets a little bit of damage, but ultimately falls. Johnny and Panatom battling it out. Panatom's got a lot of damage for Johnny. Primal Fury for the Oni Warriors. Maybe Primal Fury reset. Titans come and go. Not much to be said on the map. But if nothing else, all things stay the same going into the 27-minute mark.
It's a death of 1,000 cuts here for Hex Mambo. The Oni Warriors slowly tearing this game state further and further into their favor. Primal Fury simplifies the Fire Giant. Double Runic Bomb will probably become 3 before the Fire Giant's pulled in earnest. And Hex Mambo just trying their best to keep the tides at bay. The Oni Warriors have done a great job diving to that back line. Pagon in particular as well has had a phenomenal game here on the Raw. Maybe it runs in the family because he is hitting every single ultimate so far. SOT is running amok, making sure that Hawk isn't allowed to play in that back line. Panatom has been restricting Johnny much better than I thought he would. The Susano versus Bakasura matchup is not a very fun one for Susano. But considering it's a Phalanx Bakasura, it slows down some of that DPS. Panatom been able to survive each one of those regurgitates. I believe 3 now. Used on him, and he just walks out of there after dropping the Typhoon. So it's a moot battle between these junglers, and between the backline dive, it's the Oni Warriors coming out ahead. Hex Mambo need to address it. Either deal with SOT on his dunk. You've got the damage output between Johnny and Spudio to really shred some of these frontliners. Double kin size will do that for you. Or perhaps you need to see a little bit more from Julio. He's had some good pushes, but for the most part has found either Jake. Once or twice we've seen him on SOT. It's been those tanks. Catch out Pagon, catch out Netroid. All of a sudden you're turning some heads.
Yeah, Pagon's felt very undisrupted this game.
1-0-6
on the Raw, right? I mean, doing a lot of assisting. Seen some good snipes though from Pagon. You're thinking, man, this Raw could have a difficult time if a Tier, if a Bakasura find their way in. But we have just not seen that play out. More pressure towards Jake than anything else, but Jake has slipped away just a few times as well. Spudio's really spooled up the damage. That surprised me. I figured it would be Pagon on top, but Spudio's had a good game here so far. 1 minute away from the enhanced Fire Giant. Oni Warriors 1, maybe team fight away from sending Hex Mambo packing. A lot more controlled chaos from the Oni Warriors in this set than we were left with in Phase 1.
Wouldn't even call it chaos at this point.
Yeah, right,
this is reminding me of like a Season 9 Camelot King style from the Oni Warriors. Just slow, methodical, taking apart the map state, grabbing neutral objectives, poking and prodding, but not overcommitting. The Oni Warriors, they've taken their month break of practice to really hone in on maybe their trigger discipline.
Kha'Zix, bored of the pace of this game, dashes forward. Tatsuya blink.
Massive honk.
Oh, Netrioid clipped by the Yanis ultimate. Oni Warriors unhappy with the initial prospects of this fight. Out and away they go. Kha'Zix and the rest of Hex Mambo starting to work down the Tier 1 tower. Root from Kha'Zix, but a wall from SOT. Reminds him which team is ahead. Sot has set the stage, and he might finish this fight as well. And Anvil of Dawn gets double beads for a double kill.
Good Lord.
A triple kill from Sot. Runs him down. Are your eyes open now? Because the Oni Warriors have awoken at the end of Game 2, and it is the end of Game 2. And the end of Hex Mambo here at Masters.
Pagon plays that perfectly, Dave. The dive was well executed by Hex Mambo. Every bit of CC found its way to Pagon, but Pagon had an answer each time. Oh, you've got a stun? I'll beads that one. Oh, Blink Fearless? I'll just ult to CC immune that. I don't need the damage to kill you. And immediately afterward, once everything was expended, the Oni Warriors turn and burn every individual member of Hex Mambo. Clean, concise, clinical. Words I wouldn't have used to describe the Oni Warriors until today, but the only ones I could use that are correct.
I mean, if we saw shades of that from Oni Warriors at the end of Phase 1. There were games where they slowed down their pace a little bit, but they're still interlaced with a lot of these little fights and scraps, it feels like. This was a start to finish. We're going to take these objectives, and Gold Fury lasted like 20 minutes in this game. But the Oni Warriors, they find a way to get it done. The longest winning streak, that already happened at the end of Phase 1.
Yeah, we're
right?
still in it. It's just extending.
We're adding on to it. Hex Mambo, they had a heck of a run here at Smite Masters, but unfortunately you faceplant right into the Oni Warriors by the end of it. This is going to be a difficult team to beat.
I mean, we always knew the Oni Warriors were going to be one of the clear favorites for this tournament, and I think clearly still the case. Hex Mambo kept us guessing for Game 1, nearly able to extend this set. Frog, unfortunately, incorrect in his 3-game prediction, but at the end of the day, the SPL prevails.
Yeah, say it 3 times for the 3 time. It's not vamos, vamos,
no,
vamos. It's Frog saying definitely going to a Game 3 on the desk. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't get there, but Oni Warriors, they step up. Again, I think this became a very anticipated matchup because of what Hex Mambo did, and we cannot forget that because it was a great tournament from Hex Mambo. Oni Warriors, their win streak continues here in Season 10, and the desk will tell us how we got there.
Hex Mambos, the miracle run coming to an end as my companion on the desk gets absolutely rinsed.
I only said definitely twice, for the record.
Did you?
I did not say it a
Someone
third time.
cue up the film. Vile, who's ever get the replay ready of Frog going definitely.
I had faith, and I will not be dragged over the coals for that. I am proud that I had faith. Ultimately, though, that faith was misplaced, and the Oni Warriors definitely showed up. I think they took their month off, and like Miff said, they really refined that play style. They took things a little bit slower, disciplined gameplay. He compared it to Season 9 Camelot Kings, which is quite the compliment. And I'm not sure that he's far off. They did not force themselves where they didn't need to be. They did find themselves on the bad end of a couple of trades, but nothing that they couldn't handle. And ultimately, what was it to end the game? It was a counter-engage. They didn't force something they didn't need to. It was Hex Mambo uncharacteristically forcing a bad fight. They get the re-engage, they win the game.
Impressive by the Mambo as well. I mean, Game 1, nearly taking it by a razor's edge.
Yeah.
Coming back to unfortunately lose it and then dropping game number 2 here. It was pretty tight all the way through. I mean, here 30 minutes in, 7-7. Gold lead sure in the pocket of the Oni Warriors, but Hex Mambo never stopped fighting back until they literally were decided and didn't have a player on the map to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a slow, drawn-out game, and I think the Oni Warriors, through it, just kept finding the small wins. Pagon going deathless, solo troll consistently. I mean, he was out of the solo lane so often in that game and just using that global pressure so well on the Thor. Panatom as well, just getting in and out of those fights, consistently keeping Johnny's attention comparatively to when Johnny was playing those SCC teams where he had those free flanks and it was hard to keep track of Johnny. In the last 15 minutes, it was Panatom constantly finding Johnny, trading a couple abilities, and they have to go run away. Trading a couple abilities, run away. And all of a sudden, Johnny doesn't get to have that same setup into fights. It was just Oni Warriors did everything right.
Oni Warriors continuing their undefeated streak. We've got the coach, Oxy, standing by.
Oxy, head coach of the Oni Warriors. The win streak continues. Been about a month since the last time we've seen you guys play. Pretty big update to Smite here recently. Do you feel like strategy and play style has had to change for the Oni Warriors in the current update?
Yeah, we train a lot. We try a lot of things in scrims, a lot of different meta from different teams, and try to adapt to everything.
And look, a lot of what you guys did really well in Phase 1. You play really fast, you fight a lot. These 2 games felt a bit slower. Do you think that's just the way that this meta is going to play?
Sure. Probably everybody think that gonna be a slow meta, and I agree with that.
Because the game times were still sort of short, but the pace of the game was still kind of slow, and so it's just interesting everyone's take. You guys went up against Mambo here. They played really well all week long. Johnny was the name of the game. Do you have to draft specifically around Johnny, or do you focus more on what you guys want to play?
Yeah, we try to take off the great player, Disoni, because he's probably the best jungler in the world.
Best jungler in the world. Did Panatom hear you say that?
Yes.
You wanted him to hear you say that. You had some final thoughts that you wanted to share with some folks at home, I think. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Feliz día a todos los padres en español. Eso.
Perfect. Support from around the world for the Oni Warriors. Congrats. The win streak continues. We'll go back to the desk.
Lots of confidence there from the coach Oxy for the Oni Warriors, ending the miracle run for the Hex Mambo. And even though Hex Mambo are headed home, I think certainly have turned some heads here in the Smite Pro League.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Oxy just called him the best jungler in the world from the winning streak, undefeated
not even on his own team.
SPL team. There's a lot of confidence, and there's sure a lot to come from this Hex Mambo roster.
Absolutely. Speaking of lots to come, we've got one more set today, but let's take a look at this bracket and see where we've come from and where we still have to go. The Hex Mambo, you can see the run all the way through the bracket there, now coming to an end. Eldritch Hounds finding the Wargs, Ferryman over the Levi's. The Eldritch Hounds and the Highland Ravens will be matching up to round out this first phase of the Smite Masters tournament. And then you can see the Oni Warriors, Jade Dragons of the top bracket. That'll come a little bit later on in the week, though.
Yep, winner of this going up against the Styx Ferrymen down in Masters Part 2. That's going to be next weekend. But for now, our last match of the weekend coming up, and we have indeed a good one. I think the Hounds, they had to reverse sweep against the other EU SEC powerhouse, so they have a sense of how they want to play, especially against that meta. And now they have to go up against a slightly different meta. This Ravens team, untested, surely enough. Sure. They've been watching all the games. They've been scrimming, but they're going to come out of the gate with their own ideas. And on the other side, Hounds, they were just tested by this other idea of the meta, likely going to be different. So they certainly do have the momentum after that win a little bit earlier today, but it's going to be tough to adapt into that SPL team.
An SPL versus SPL matchup here, Frog. We just saw that the Oni Warriors taking a little bit of a break didn't affect their gameplay at all. We'll see if the same applies to the Highland Ravens after a quick break. Stick around.